Welcome to our fourth panel of the day. This panel is entitled Generational Wealth Through Entrepreneurship, Investing and Financial Literacy. We will bring our moderator to the stage, Dominique Broadwell, who's an award-winning financial planner, personal finance coach, speaker, finance expert, entrepreneur, and the founder of Finances Demystified and the Social Money Tour. She has a strong passion for working with young professionals, entrepreneurs, and people of all ages to bring their dreams to reality. She began at major brokerage firms such as UBS Financial Services and Edelman Financial Services at the ripe age of 21, focusing on clients with $10 million and up in investable assets. Shortly after launching Finances Demystified, an award-winning organization that provides personal finance coaching and financial capability solutions, she was named one of the top financial advisors in the United States for millennials at the age of 28. She is an alum of Bahiyah State University, where she received her Bachelor's of Business Administration with a focus on banking and finance, and she furthered her education with a Master's of Science in Financial Management from the University of Maryland University College. Thank you so much for being here, Dominique.
Thank you so much for having me, Morgan. Thank you so much for that warm introduction. Once again, my name is Dominique Broadwell. I'm so excited to be moderating this panel today, as this is one of my favorite topics and a topic that actually aligns with my personal mission in life. So the topic of today's panel is creating or generational wealth through entrepreneurship, investing, and financial literacy. So we have 5 amazing speakers today. So I want to actually go ahead and just jump right into it. Can we bring our panelists to the stage as well? Awesome. So these are our panelists. We have Jessica Myers of JAG Holdings LLC. We have Ryan Wilson, CEO and co-founder of The Gathering Spot. I'm sure we have all visited The Gathering Spot at some point in our lives. We have Bahiyah Yasmeen Robinson, the founder and CEO of VC Include. Brian Hollins, the founder and CEO of Takeoff Institute and board member of Black VC. And last but certainly not least, Perry Flemming Jr., Director of Data Analytics and Fintech at Experian. Thanks, guys, everyone, for being here today. This is like a really powerful panel.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Yeah, excited. We're about to solve this whole generational wealth issue in this next 45 minutes. So let's go ahead and
let's do it.
So let's go ahead, like I said, and jump straight into the question. So Bahiyah, what is VC Include, and what is the ultimate goal for this program?
I think I'll answer it last question first. So VC Include, I really created it after working with about 10 years as an impact investor and with underrepresented founders to create a solution for creating an infrastructure for economic justice and economic justice infrastructure. And what I was seeing was, as I was raising capital for underrepresented founders, 2012, 2013, 2014, 15, when there were just at that time, a handful of even Black women that were raising capital, that there was really the challenge was really the supply chain of capital, right? Not just one check, but how could we create at scale opportunities for investment into thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Black and brown founders. And so what I was seeing was there wasn't really any innovation happening at the asset manager level. In about 2016, I realized that the government came out with a survey that said asset managers, who are the folks like VCs that invest in companies and in entrepreneurs, 1.3% of asset managers were women or people of color, literally all together in one bucket. And so I realized, okay, that's why 0.007% of Black women were getting more than $1 million, right? Getting venture capital. That's why, all of the stats that we know now that we're it's drummed into our head, at that time, there wasn't really the data to show that. And so I decided to really focus on kind of upstream. And I built VC Include as a platform to accelerate investment and amplify it into underrepresented founders by disrupting the asset manager to asset allocator level. So I'll stop there, but that's the goal.
Wow, that's awesome.
And the why.
That's awesome. So powerful. Thank you. Jessica, I want to move on to you. I know that you have acquired a Hilton Hotel, right? Which is amazing. So can you tell me, how did your personal and business finances affect your ability to acquire a Hilton Hotel? As I'm sure that may be the goal of others. Oh, you're on mute, Jessica. Okay, there we go.
Well, for one, it was definitely no easy feat to get to the point. I mean, when you think about developing something so big, it's all about having your team in place. You definitely too want to start with your criteria of what are you even looking for? Because I mean, we kissed a lot of frogs before we found one that actually worked. So it definitely took a lot of networking and bringing the right resources to the table. So much today was talking about, VC and getting access to capital, but it's really about connecting and enrolling your community to achieve collaborative economics so that you can do more than what you can do personally. Because as a developer, I already had smaller projects that I was working on, and partnering with Devon and other investors really helped to bring the deal and make it happen. As you guys saw, it was an $8.3 million deal that we were able to acquire the Home 2 Suites by Hilton in El Reno, Oklahoma. But it really came from networking and pulling together our resources on the backside that helped to make that deal a reality. So it's really about identifying your criteria, understanding your team that will make it happen, and then pulling together the capital resources from, collaborative economics and partnership.
Nice. That's very important. That team and having the right network, I know, has been really, really critical in my entrepreneurial journey as well. So Ryan, I know, like I said, I'm a fan of the Gathering Spot. When I'm in Atlanta, I try to come by. I've actually spoken there a couple of times. I think I said everyone's a fan of the Gathering Spot. Can you tell us, what is one of the main lessons that you learned from being a venture-backed company?
Look, it's a tough process. We pitched 97 times before the first person said yes. And
Wow.
So we learned throughout that journey that it is a couple of things. First, it's important to really understand your model. I'll be honest, when we started, I had no idea how to best articulate what we were doing. And it made it extremely tough to move forward in a lot of the processes that we were in with different. We've talked to everybody, VCs, family offices, and just individual people. The second thing that I learned in that process, though, is that no, a lot of times is actually a point of validation. I loved at the end of the process that we received no's from some of the people that would not have been good partners for us. I also appreciated that they were not seeing something that we were seeing in the market. And so I was looking at a lot of those no's as actually confirmation by the end of our journey in terms of raising capital that it was us heading in the right direction, because folks couldn't see what we were seeing, gave us an opportunity to build something bigger than what a lot of those no's ever expected that we would be able to get to. So, but tough journey. I mean, you have to take a lot of lumps along the way, but know that your idea comes from somewhere, and there is a good partner for you out there. You just have to continue to keep one foot in front of the other until you find them.
Nice. That's great advice. That's what make, entrepreneurs so, we're fierce people, right? We're fine with getting a bunch of no's and constantly keep pushing. And we see that vision a lot of times when other people don't see it. And so thank all of you guys for sticking with your visions and keeping going, because, that you guys are obviously helping and influencing the lives of many. Brian, what has been your motivation behind starting the Takeoff Institute and focusing in part on financial literacy, which is one of my personal missions? So tell me about, what was your motivation behind the Takeoff Institute?
Sure. I think the first idea is just, I was very lucky to get advice from a mentor pretty early on that said, if you're going to go try to help people, help them with your own superpower. So figure out what part of the education curve you think you can drive the most difference in, and then go do it. So mine was the undergraduate space. I was lucky enough to break into Goldman Sachs out of my undergrad, and then run Stanford's diversity recruiting for a few years, and really kind of see what puts someone in the right pile or the wrong pile when it comes to trying to break through the door. And I very quickly realized it was small things, and it was oftentimes things that a mentor or an advisor would tell you. And I realized that a lot of Black undergraduate students did not have those mentors or those advisors. And so the Takeoff Institute is a program designed to help Black undergraduate students get the resources and mentorship they need to break into their young professional careers. We do that a couple different ways. We focus on giving them access to the resources that they traditionally don't get. So we partner with the Wall Street Journal. We partner with Wall Street Prep so that they have PowerPoint and Excel tutorials. We partner with Handshake to make sure they're thinking about building a good LinkedIn and having a profile that's accessible for a recruiter. And then we partner with 50 advisors. So every student gets a one-on-one mentor, and they get the opportunity to have a direct report and get the experience that I personally think is necessary when you're trying to break into a place like a Goldman or a McKinsey or a Bain. So we really, at the end of the day, are trying to build confidence in Black undergrads to recognize that they're a lot closer to getting those jobs than they think they are. And if you can put an opportunity in front of them, or frankly a panel that looks like this in front of them, so that they can see what they can be someday, I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. That's very important. I know even in my journey, like starting out in the financial services industry, seeing Melody Hobson and people that look like me were, my like main driving force. Like, okay, I can be like them, right? And entering that where
we need more Melodies.
Yes, we need more Melodies. I'm trying to, be like her and motivate others as well. But, working in those corporations, when you're the only one that looks like you kind of, are kind of secretly have this mentor in your head that kind of keeps you going. So I think that is so important. As I know, like I said, it was very vital and critical on my journey. Perry, so you're with Experian, right? I'm sure everyone probably calls you be like, Perry, help me fix my credit.
Pay your bills.
I'm sure family calls me, my credit score down. Perry, help me get it back up. So Perry, tell me, like, some would argue that the current model of credit scoring unfairly affects people of color, right? And so what are some of the new innovations at Experian that help address this and make the credit scoring methodology a much fairer one?
Yeah, I think the one that people are probably the most familiar with that's popular right now is Experian Boost. Mm-hmm. Historically, you haven't been able to get the positive credit for those things that you've been doing well, such as paying your phone bill on time, or your cable bill, or your utilities. That has not been added to your credit report. But if you did something wrong, you didn't pay those, you got dinged for it. Most recently with Experian, probably about 2-3 years ago, they launched the Experian Boost product that allowed us to look into your transactions within the bank account and now add that to your credit report. And so the great thing about that is it benefits people of color that much more. So we're more likely to have thin credit files or not have credit coming out of college or even later on in life. And this is a mechanism that allows you to build credit without potentially going into the negative credit card debt or other types of debt that has disproportionately started us off on the wrong journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's one concept, but there's a few others. My most current role is head of credit, wealth, and health equity, where we're building and partnering with Black organizations to understand how we can get voice of the customer and how we can partner with entrepreneurs, such as a lot of people on this panelists, to understand the pain points and innovate in a way that could benefit our community. So pleasure to be here, and also to learn and hear some of the ideas presented here, so I can take it back to the group and figure out ways where we can do product development together.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually was a huge fan of the Experian Credit Boost that came, I think it's about a year ago. I was actually a part on the influencer team, one of the influencers kind of pushing it out. And I know a lot of my audience was like, wow, they literally were able to see 20, 30 point increases in their credit. And I think it was just very powerful to finally, like you say, be able to actually get good credit and good points for the things that you've been doing well anyway, paying your electricity, paying your cell phone. Like you said, you only time they put it on your credit is when you don't pay. And it's like, come on, man, let me get some points for when I do good. So shout out to Experian for that, because I know it's definitely helped a lot of people. And I'm excited to see what else you guys are producing. Bahiyah, a question on institutional investors, right? And getting more of them to invest in entrepreneurs of color. Why do you feel like there is this unwillingness and reluctance by most institutional investors to invest in entrepreneurs of color?
I mean, it's several things. I'd say it's the things that we kind of already know. One is, asset allocators and institutional investors don't look like us, right? It's back to that 1.3% of asset managers. The allocators even smaller. So the folks that are investing in the managers that are investing in us, 98+%, right guys, which is fine if they understood all of the innovation opportunity. I mean, that exists. I mean, I don't see how they don't, but if they did and bet on us, right, we would be much further along. But I think on the institutional, I will say that in the last, year plus 18 months since COVID hit, what we saw was a big uptake in institutional investors coming to us and saying, look, the best in class fund managers, the VCs, the impact investors that are investing in local communities on the ground, because that's what we're doing. We're aggregating, diasporan, national, Black, Brown, et cetera, managers, right? That know where the innovation lies in their particular areas and regions of interest, and in their in the industries and particular sectors, right? And so we're aggregating all of those managers to say, when allocators come and say we can't find them, right? It's like that pipeline thing. Yes, you can. they're literally all here. We have hundreds, right? We have a pipeline of hundreds of Black and Brown VCs and impact investors and private equity and et cetera. And so there's no excuse there. I think that now that they are seeing the incredible amount of opportunity that exists and investing in, Black and Brown VCs, women, I always have to include that, not just Black and Brown, but also inclusive of us from a gender perspective. The tides are turning a bit. I mean, the question's always like, is it a now thing? Is it just because we're all in COVID and then it's going to turn back? Either way, we're still here to stay and we're scaling pretty fast. And I think collectively, and as evident by all the people on this panel, our collective action and our collective networks and making sure that we're passing on opportunities, sharing knowledge, literally sharing wealth, investing in one another is going to be, key to saying like, why don't they invest in us versus we have the capital and the ability to invest in ourselves. And that's really what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's it can be really, as you said, it can be really difficult for people of color. I know even with my business, I never really actively sought out, getting investors. But, hitting the 7-figure, now we're on track for 8 figures this year. I feel like now they're reaching out like, oh, are you? Yeah, I'm like, I'm good.
They want a part of that. Yeah, because now they want a part of that check, right? And that's what happens. And I think the frustration of, entrepreneurs of color, startups of color, even VCs of color is that you were going to come back to me. And I think Ryan, mentioned this in the beginning. We know you're coming back as soon as we get over that hump. You're making it so hard for us to kind of get there. But when we do, we'll be in a better position to kind of negotiate, right? So take those meetings, right? Take those investor meetings, see what they're talking about. You're now in a position where you don't have to say, I need the money. Yeah. That's the position of power, right? And that's where we want to get to at scale, right? All of us, yeah.
Totally agree. But it is definitely frustrating when after the fact, they all want to jump in. Of course
it is. That's part of the game.
It's annoying though.
Yeah, for sure.
Jessica, since we're talking about, kind of financing and getting funding, kind of 2-part question. How did your own personal, how did you plan your financial journey, both personal and business, to pursue these types of opportunities of ownership? And how were you able to finance this type of deal?
Well, like I mentioned before, as far as once you develop your criteria and you understand like what are the bounds of the capital that I have access to, and as they said, most investors, most millionaires are actually made in a down economy. So we actually, well, yes, the deal is valued for millions of dollars. We were actually able to acquire the deal, obviously much less than that, and we were able to enroll our community. We were able to talk, we were speaking on podcasts, we were having webinars. We actually hosted several events to talk to people about getting involved in commercial real estate. And at the onset, just as you guys are saying, no one was coming. No one wanted to hear it. We started to rev up steam from consistency. And as our community saw that we were passionate about ownership, we're passionate about generational wealth, and we had the deal that became available due to the economic circumstances, we were able to hit go. We were able to hit play. And when you have enough power players on the team, it may not even have to tap into your personal finances. It may not have to tap into your personal credit score and what you look like. I didn't co-sign, for the hotel, but our partners did. And we brought together the right people to the team to make sure that we were able to hit go and hit play. So it's really about networking and making sure that as I'm outlining the criteria of what I'm looking for in a deal for ownership, who do I have on my team that I can go to for resources to make it happen and pull it off? And that's what we were able to do through the hotel acquisition. We were able to bring all of the right players to the team, enroll our community, and make the history-making moment that you guys saw.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I think a couple of things I've been hearing, even just like today from a lot of you guys. One, you mentioned numerous times, just having that team. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, we try to go it alone, and we can go much farther and much quicker. As a group, as a collective, and having multiple powerful minds on the same project, it's so powerful. Another thing I keep hearing is consistency. Right. Yes. You mentioned consistency. Ryan mentioned how many no's he got, right? A lot of no's. And the average person is going to turn around after one no, like, oh no, one person said no, this isn't for me. But even as you said, Ryan, like a lot of times those no's are really just kind of leading you in the right direction. I look at those doors of no's as like, it's just taking me on that path. I thought I was going to go that way, but it's going to take me where I need to be. So I think that's really important for our audience to, kind of take away from this. Yeah. And
sometimes too, it's testing you to see how vigilant are you on your dream, because when no one came we're talking about, I had single family development experience. My business partner, Davon, actually has, the hospitality experience. So to me, I could have looked at it as something I can never do, a lane I could never cross. But it's about, like you said, staying consistent, staying vigilant on the goal, and having others buy into your vision. Having those, a lot of people, hey, Jess, I got $25,000 to invest. And I'm like, wait, you? Like, people you didn't even expect in your circle, that when you're so passionate about your goal, you're passionate about your vision, they're seeking you out to invest and fulfill your dreams. And that's what we were able to come and create a collective to acquire this large asset, because we didn't do it by ourselves. It definitely was a team effort.
Wow. Awesome. Love it. All right, Ryan, tell me, I guess, how are you, since, this panel is about generational wealth, how do you personally plan to create generational wealth? We guys know you gathering spot, you have the Atlanta location. I think you just opened DC and probably plan to expand and take over more of the country and maybe the world. But how do you personally plan to create generational wealth?
So, a couple of things. We're going to continue to build gathering spots across the country. So that's my day job. But
great.
Along the way,
Miami, so we're waiting for the Miami location.
I got you. I got you. But the thing that we're trying to accomplish while we're building these clubs is really to share information. It is so important for us to continue to have conversations like this with one another, publicly, privately, and at any opportunity that we can, because I think that the biggest thing that we're lacking when it comes to talking about finances or generational wealth or whatever term you want to use inside of this bucket is really just us being uncomfortable in the conversation and falling susceptible to this narrative that there's a massive knowledge gap that exists in our community that doesn't exist in others. Now, look, don't get me wrong. There are some people in our community that everyone starts somewhere. We've got to work with with folks so that they have the information to be able to do and accomplish whatever it is that they want to. But there are a lot of us, right, that are doing and are well prepared to do whatever needs to get done inside of this finance bucket, and we've got to speak to one another with that sort of confidence. It is so frustrating to me what's going on right now, where particularly folks of color are way over mentored and under resourced, and then we act as if the reason why we're under resourced is because of some massive knowledge gap. And again, there's some percentage of every community that doesn't know, but a lot of us know a lot, right? And so part of our goal and how we're going to build generational wealth is simply by talking about it in a way where it is achievable, where you're able to point to folks that are doing what we have people here that are doing it and doing it well, right? And we've got to point to those folks and say, look, legitimately, we can do these things if we just stay in strong contact with one another and share basic information, not making this thing out to be bigger than what it actually is. I mean, it's scary to me to enter into some of these conversations where we're making conversations around finances more scary than they need to be, right? We can and do already do this, right? Is the place that I'm at with it. And I think that we're going to build it again by simply just talking about it with confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's about changing the narrative too, because for so long we've been left out of the ownership conversation. So like you said, I mean, it's not that other communities have all this information, but some of them have more examples. So that's why it's important, like conversations like this, that, bring high level people, it's a lot of awesome people that you guys have at the conference, and you're bringing that access to our community. And that's what it's about, continuing to raise the narrative, continuing to be a part of these conversations, and leave behind those nuggets and trails so that people can follow. I mean, that's why we created those educational platforms. So like you said, Brian, where, we can come to and find out how to take the steps that you did. Not that, you're going to follow everything that I did and get my exact result, but you now can open up and see what opportunities become available for you. But you have to take the step and get the education. Joining us like here today is part of it, but take that next step, get that education in what you're looking to do. And that builds the confidence to make the moves and execute when you see an opportunity.
Yeah. Totally. I want to quickly add to that. Jessica and Bahiyah and I have spent a lot of time talking about this, but, I think unfortunately, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, certainly 5 years ago, there was a mindset around Black managers that there was this set pool of capital out there, and everybody was fighting and scrapping for $100 million a year that was going to go to Black LPs, to Black GPs. And I think what we're starting to finally step into is a recognition that the pie is way bigger than that, and that collectively we have the opportunity not just to go get our check or our bag, but also to help everyone else in the room get theirs as well. That it's not just 5 family offices or 2 endowments that care about what we're doing anymore. And I think that's a powerful moment. I'm a founding board member at BLCKVC. And in 2018, there were not a lot of rooms with Black venture capitalists talking about how to help one another or how to get each other into deals. And it's happening all around right now. And I think it's powerful because we truly do have an opportunity to change generational wealth for Black people in this country. I think it's pretty cool.
Every day I wake up and see a new article, a new 100 million, 300 million pledged by this company, $1 billion pledged by this. Like, it's so beautiful, and it's directed towards our community. I'm so excited for what we get to create.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is very it's very exciting. And sometimes I'm just like, where did all this money like randomly come from? Right out of the blue. But it is very exciting. And I do hope that this money is actually going to be distributed as they say, right? Yeah. That's my hope.
But that's the point of consistency, is you realize like, you're the person that they're looking for if you've been doing it. You've been doing the work consistently. You didn't let a no stop you. That's the point of keeping going despite what anyone says, because that's how you come across these opportunities. What were you about to say, Bahiyah?
And I was just going to say, and just to add to what you guys are saying about, I mean, I think there's 3 parts of this. One is kind of how you show up, right? As an entrepreneur, as an investor, et cetera. It's really also about mindset, and it's about really what your beliefs are. We're taught there's not enough, only, all these things that that have been, you can't do it. No one's going to invest in you. There's not enough money. No one's going to invest in Black. No one's going to invest in brown. There is unlimited capital. Let me just say that, like, there is enough. There is enough money for everyone. The part of the programming that we, I think, as a community need to deprogram is the fact that there's some kind of limit. There's no limit. We can generate it ourselves. We can go out and attract it. There's a lot of ways to start building and growing generational wealth. And there was a question in the chat. I'm a first generation wealth builder. And I think part of that, and my parents were educated. I had the privilege of quote unquote, great education, but they weren't able to really take advantage of the American dream. Yes, a little bit of real estate, a little bit of this and that, but they didn't really understand, harness, and believe in creating and really focus on creating generational wealth. And they did great with what they had and, gave me what they could. But for me, it was like, well, why aren't we further ahead? Right. And so part of my, 20s and, my early career was about being afraid of money, about saying, well, that finance is something that it's hard. It's, it's toxic. It's not for women. All of this stuff that, again, was kind of programmed in me. And I was like, well, wait a minute. If I'm fundraising for founders, if I'm raising all this capital, investing in Africa, I'm an investor, actually. Like, there was really that moment at probably 2014 or so. I was like, 2012, maybe, but again, just like the realizations of that as we continue to grow, as we continue to learn from Ryan's point, as we continue to network with one another and realize that there's other opportunities that we can create for ourselves or opportunities that we can create for others. That's where we have unlimited kind of creation power. And I think it's woo-woo, but it's really important to kind of say that.
Totally. Brian, I had a question. Where'd my question go? Oh, I lost my question. Okay. I know the goal of Black VC is to double the representation of Black investors by 2024, which I'm like really excited to hear. Why did you choose this goal? And is the ultimate goal even bigger than this? Yeah,
it's a good question. I think part of building anything, you got to aspire to goals. I think too many people, they have ideas and are afraid to potentially put out a number that they couldn't hit or something like that. We've been very intentional about saying that we think, by 2024, we can double the number of Black investors. And I think an important component of that is it's not just about getting people into analyst or associate seats. It's about moving them up the curve into check writing capacities as well. So how do you make them principals? How do you make them partners? Because that's really where you start to control the narrative, right? That's where a Black founder can come in and you can pound the table and tell them why they don't understand that person should get funded, and here's why, and here's my experience. So we're super excited about moving people up that curve. And another component of Black VC that I think is interesting is we've started to also recognize that the Black community, specifically Black executives, have much less experience as angel investors than the white community. And so we built something called the Black Venture Institute. And the Black Venture Institute is designed to help Black executives, 7 years at Facebook, 6 years at LinkedIn, people who do have some discretionary income, to start to understand how to be angel investors, to write 10K checks, to write 25K checks, because we think that a top-down approach alongside the bottoms-up approach we traditionally have with Black VC is what's going to allow us to really kind of drive capital into Black and brown communities. So we're super excited, and Black VC is just getting started in some ways. So kids, stay tuned. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I know that's one of my goals this year is to become an angel investor. And I've actually been talking to friends who I know have been starting things and saying how I can, be an investor and write a check and help you grow this thing. So I'm probably going to be enrolling.
I think to be honest,
so I can learn.
Absolutely, and that's what I think is all that's missing is that we're demystifying it.
Yes.
It's actually, it's not, when you pull back it's not rocket science. It's just our community we're taught how to do it and how to actively kind of, back one another. So that's really what we're doing, is just helping people realize it's actually right in front of you. It's just, here's a little bit of resources and a little bit of guidance. And that's what gets it going.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many people are scared of losing their shirt. But if you have the right team around you, if you have the right education around you and access to resources, it's not that you're going to do everything perfect. It's not that, you're going to do everything right, but just understand that we're growing and learning together. Because like you said, for so long, we were left out of the conversation. So we didn't see the hiccups. We didn't see the mess ups. All we see is the perfection. And so as you go into, being a VC, some of the conversation I heard earlier is they were saying, it's a risk that you take as a venture capitalist. And it's a risk that it's betting on yourself. It's a risk that you have to pay if you don't do it. So it's really about, surrounding yourself with the team and the educational resources so that you can be more confident in the risks that you take in making those investments.
I love it. Were you about to add something, Perry?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw your mic go off. Okay. Awesome. Actually, my next question is for you, Perry. So why is the current industry approach to get consumers to meet requirements of the credit scoring model for better results rather than looking at the bias of the credit scoring model and adjusting equitably to the consumers?
Yeah, so we're looking at that, actively. And it's been a topic of conversation, for years now. And so there's alternative data that's being put into different scoring models, right? So there's not just one scoring model that's used for everything. There's one for mortgage, there's one for auto, there's one for credit cards. And so the different models can use different types of data. And so alternative data is a very hot topic where you're bringing in cash flows from people's bank accounts, the information that we talked around Boost. But we have to have an honest conversation that, historically we've been left out of the credit cycle. And it's I think somebody else mentioned earlier that it's during the down economies where, millionaires are actually made. It's also during those down economies where people of color have left out on opportunities. So if you go back, look at the Great Depression, the New Deal, we were left out of a lot of opportunities there for home ownership. If you go into the GI Bill after World War II, we're missed out on all of our Black soldiers coming back from war and having the opportunity to get free education, get low interest rate small business loans or home ownership loans. And even if you look at the last Great Recession, we were negatively impacted from the home ownership crisis. And so we just wanted to make sure during this cycle where Black people and Hispanic people are being disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, both from a home ownership and a small business perspective, but also getting COVID, being hospitalized by COVID and dying from COVID, that we're raising our hand to say not under our watch this time. Mm-hmm. And so during COVID-19 and also during the George Floyd murder, I just couldn't do anymore. And it was like, I can't come to work and just focus on capital markets anymore. I got to bring in the hat that I wear in the community as the economic empowerment chair of the 100 Black Men of Washington, D.C., and see where I can wear that hat in a corporate setting and create innovative partnerships where we can, for example, partner with Ryan in the Gathering Spot and bring some of this education to the table and have accountability groups where we can start having conversations about how we build generational wealth as a community.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we have to have people in all different seats helping us get our voice out. So I love the work that you're doing, Perry, with Experian. I had one more question that I want to open it up. 2 questions. Let me see. Actually, I had took a note here what I wanted to ask. Now I don't see it. Okay. Oh, well, I'll go ahead and jump into Q&A. So we had a question from Ruby Chapman. This is a question for whoever wants to answer it. First part is kind of what about succession plans that each of you have? And then are any of you second generation or third generation wealth builders?
Well, I am a first generation wealth builder. And, my parents, they were hourly workers growing up. I was so excited for my job making $40,000. I remember when I first got out of college, and my mom was like, I never made more than that over my life. Wow. And that was very staggering for me because she managed a family of 5. I couldn't even see how that would maintain myself. So that's where it really took me to hold my head down and like, how do I create cash flow? How do I create generational wealth? That's what led me to, you know, books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. But we also wrote a book, my partner and I, Epic Conversations on Wealth, which talks about how to maintain your wealth. We speak to commercial real estate experts that talk not only how to acquire it, but maintain it and pass it down. Because, you know, I've known some people too, where their parents have given them businesses and opportunities and they're not interested. So it's really about creating that ethos and understanding like, who's coming next? Who's like-minded in the vision? Who do I see that is young that can really spur new life and new energy into what I have going on right now, as well as obviously financial advisors to make sure literally your will is in place and insurances are in place to make sure that, you know, if you're removed from the company, it still moves forward without you. But you want to make sure that the vision is there and you enroll someone into your vision to help carry it forward, as well as financial advisors that can help you make sure life insurance policies are in place, as well as a will to make sure that your asset is covered to pass down.
And trust.
Yes. Yeah. I'd like to add to that. Definitely legal. Legal is really important. And again, some of our community is scared of lawyers or, you know, don't want to engage. But when you start talking about estate planning, your wills, those kind of things, lawyers can become really helpful. So it's about finding, the right legal professionals that can help you with that estate planning. You talked about succession too, and something that Jessica said a few times about partnerships and your network. I mean, your team, you should have ownership of your company. You should retain that, right, beyond the life of, but beyond your life, particularly if it's a successful company. So making sure that, again, back to documents, your partnership agreements, your operating agreements have your correct ownership in writing, because a handshake or a conversation is not legal, right? And so we want to make sure that we're protected in that way. And that's where lawyers and paperwork really is important. Financial planning absolutely is really critical. And and your investments. I mean, I think some of the things that Brian was saying about, angel investing, and when you get to the point where you have some, discretionary income, to really be smart about, am I going to take 3 vacations a year for some people, the privileged few, right? Or am I going to take one? I mean, someone was like, why don't you not take this vacation and put that $5K into, a company, or into, be a retail investor, invest in Republic. And there's all of these things back to educating yourself that you can also start with, not 5,000, 100, 50, 1,000. I mean, smaller, bites that might start to grow for you over time. So, having that, you have to think generationally to build generational wealth. I think that's kind of the piece of it that you should take with you.
I totally agree. I think one of the things we were doing this week, my husband and I, is we were sitting down and talking with our CPA and our estate planner and stuff like that. And we're talking about, literally, we're actually building out our 356 year plan, but 300-year plan for our finances. We are literally putting things in place to be able to control our wealth through trust and other avenues over the next 300 years, right? So yes, it's great. A lot of us make great money here, but if we're making this money and then we have no plan in place to control it and for it to continue to grow, it essentially can be a waste of time. So I think it's really important, if we're talking about generational wealth, like the first step, you got to talk about making some money and getting some wealth, right? But then all the conversations I feel like I have now is, how do I reduce my taxable income and how do I keep the money? That's all we talk about now. How do we keep the money that's coming in, right? I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. So please make sure, just from my experience, make sure we're having equal talks, like both of you guys just mentioned, about protecting the wealth. Because once you get it, you got to protect it and keep it. Ryan, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, and you just said it in part, but that first step around scale, right? Talking about growth, we've got to talk about, and I don't say this to be pessimistic, but we have to talk about where we are to identify where we can get to. Yep. Where we are right now is that 96% of our businesses don't employ a single person, right? And so when you start talking about succession planning, y'all, I'm from Atlanta, right? And so I went to school with folks that were from Coca-Cola families. They didn't start Coca-Cola. I went to school with Home Depot families. They didn't start Home Depot either, but they worked inside of those organizations because they got to scale. we've got to think about our businesses. Yes, succession planning for our immediate family, but also how do we build businesses that can have lives, the impact of having an effect on a lot of families' lives long term. And we don't talk about that enough. One stat that I learned last year that has made me sad every time I think about it is that of the 1.3 or 1.4 trillion dollars of spending power that we have, 97% of that money is spent outside of our community. Wow. Right. And so before we start talking about any other community, we really have to talk about what we can do immediately. What we can do is start to support ourselves with real intention, right, to get some businesses to scale. Like we have some folks here that own businesses where there shouldn't be any other place that you should stay if you're anywhere near Jessica's hotel. That needs to be the way that we move and make that sort of decision all across the board if we're going to start talking about succession planning. Because again, our businesses right now exist as being way too small. 0.5% of Black-owned companies do over $1 million top line in revenue a year. If we don't change that, it's really difficult to have conversations about what happens next.
Totally agree. I wanted to ask another question, because I think I'm a big book nerd myself. Like I read a lot of books. Me and my husband, like we have a whole wall of just books, right? So Alante Wallace was asking, what books would you all recommend to self-educate on financial literacy? Like, what are you guys' favorite financial literacy books?
One of my favorite is actually Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was what really catapulted my career in thinking about cash flow and exchanging time for money. It allowed me to look at it differently, because I think somebody asked me last year, how much money did I make? And I'm like, I look at it by the deal. I have, so cool, the hotel deal, the 6 properties that I just purchased in Brunswick. So I think in terms of like cash flow and revenue that I have coming in versus, thinking like an employee. How much money did you gross like in 1 year based on an hourly rate? And that book was very pivotal in changing my paradigm of how to look at assets and cash flow. And it's not just about getting quick deals, but setting up long-term planning of, okay, this is how much money I'm going to generate off of this asset or this deal. I do it by the deal. So that's really just a matter of planning it out to play it out and thinking of your long-term cash flow strategy. And that's what the book Rich Dad Poor Dad helped me to develop.
I love it. And Bahiyah is dropping like all of my favorite books in the chat. Bahiyah, you want to say all the books that you're dropping in the chat here?
Yeah, I was just gonna. I just wanted to reflect some of Jessica's early ones, which I think those are kind of classics, right?
Yeah.
Those are like the ones that you want to kind of get through. If you haven't read them, read them. And then there's of course a wealth of other, types of investment. It just depends on, again, to her point, what you're looking. Are you looking to make, real estate investments? Are you just trying to, kind of steward the capital or the money, the revenue that you're making? Are you an entrepreneur and have you inherited some money? I mean, whatever the situation is, how do you again build, protect, and grow that wealth? I mean, one that because I'm more on the kind of at the top, looking at the top of the funnel, right? And how do we get capital at those larger, those 100 million, 200, 500 billions, right? To kind of scale across all of our entrepreneurial pursuits. Reginald, why do white guys have all the fun? The story of Reginald Lewis is like anyone in finance, especially any Black person or person of color in finance has probably read that book. And it's just that inspirational story of like, again, what it takes, what it took for him to kind of get there. Part, his talent, part his drive, part luck, part who he knew, part the relationship, all of those things that we've been touching on, part family, partnerships, making sure that your family unit's strong, that kind of stuff that we think go it alone, don't need nobody, everybody's, American self-made. It doesn't work like that. It's community driven. It's understanding how to build, grow, and create wealth. And so those are just a few of them.
I love all those.
I was going to just quickly add to Bahiyah's point there. I think it's a good one. Outside of books, I think just talking more about it, to be completely honest, that's something we don't do. Like, don't be afraid to talk to someone that you think is doing a good job of it, that's 5 years or 10 years older than you, and asking them what they wish they did at X, Y, or Z age. You know, I think the Black community has, we tend to, like Bahiyah said, try to do things alone and go things alone, and we don't have a big net underneath us to catch us like a lot of our peers do. And so recognizing that it's okay to talk about succession planning and not know what the answer is, or not know how to build generational wealth, it's never too late to start, is kind of my mentality. And so the power of compounding interest is that once you start, it compounds. And so you have to start somewhere. And so recognizing that there are resources out there, and you might not know how to find them, but that other people do, I think something to always remember.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is, I think at this point I'm more sophisticated in that reading, but those earlier years where I was just getting started, it was those basic books, right? For dummies, finances for dummies, early investing for idiots, right? So we don't have to get too sophisticated and complicated. I know we got all these degrees and got a lot of student loans to go along with it, but we really can go to a basic book and learn probably 95% of what you need in order to be a millionaire. It just takes investing in that $20 book.
It's true. When I was in my teens and I first taught myself how to invest, that was one of the books that my grandfather bought me, was Investing for Dummies. And I would just read that book and highlight. I don't even know if the Dummy series is still out, but it was, okay, cool. Yeah, it was great. And obviously I went on to be in that profession, but I felt like, honestly, I learned a lot more from those types of books than I learned in college. They don't teach you the actual, that's a whole other conversation. But anyway, they don't teach you those actual things that you need to actually go and run the markets. All right, anybody else want to add another book before we answer this last question? Oh, he has it right there. I love it. Anybody else want to add book recommendations? No? Okay. Last question before we wrap up. Apar Rastogi said, what, according to you, are the challenges and opportunities for an individual who is a second generation wealth builder? And what are the important skills to hone, and how can one do it?
I would say the power of developing your criteria, and by criteria is understanding what you're looking for. Because, you know, a lot of us, like they said, you know, some of us have businesses, franchises, you know, real estate and investments. It's understanding where do you want to start and where does that passion lie? Just like Dominique, you said, with that book being implanted in your life early on, you developed a passion for finances. So you really want to understand where you are. It's almost like planning a road trip. Where am I? Where am I going? And then now I can work on the resources and best plan how to get there. But if I don't establish those things first generation, second generation, or third, it's hard to understand where I'm going. And because my plan is not Dominique's plan or Ryan's plan or anyone else's plan that's on the call. So that's where you really want to start with your criteria first of what you're looking to do, where you're looking to go. And that's how best you can fill in the gaps of what's needed to get you there. Because understanding that you're second generation means that's your access to capital. So now with that access to capital, how can I use that to fuel my trip to where I'm going and ultimately get to my destination?
I'll just add to that quickly that we work with a lot of family offices and multi-wealth generation families. And one of the things that is the biggest trend, and it's really good right now, which is investing alignment to your values. So I'd say as another step to that, you know, really defining what your values are. What kind of world do you want to see in 10, 20, 30 years? And how can you make investments now to start to fuel that type of world, right? And so if you want to, you know, invest in, you know, a more environmentally family-friendly planet, you know, you're not going to be investing in fossil fuels, right? You can start, once you get clear on the values, and then you can start to align your investing with values. If you want to invest in innovation, then you want to invest in some of these, you know, amazing entrepreneurs and innovators, right? Fund managers, if you can, you know, invest at that fund level. Entrepreneurs, if you want to invest as an angel, right? But you're looking for particular deals in particular industries where either you have the industry expertise or it's alignment with the type of values that you're like, you know what, I can put, again, whatever that number is into this particular asset class or in this particular industry, and start to look for those deals that align with your values and only invest in those.
I love it. I love it. Any last closing words before we wrap up? No?
Well, I was like, you got it. Let's get it. Let's go.
We could do it.
Because every book that they mentioned, it always starts with the mindset. And any finance book that I open up, it's always pointing back to the mind. Yes, the know-how and the education you can learn, but get the mind right. Stay in the right mindset. So that's why I always say, you got it. Let's get it. Let's go.
I love it. I love it. That's how you end the generational wealth panel. I love it, Jessica. Well, thank you so much, Brian, Perry, Ryan, Bahiyah, and Jessica for allowing me to moderate this panel today. And I think we can turn it back over to Morgan.
Thank you, Dominique. Safe travels.
Thank y'all so much for such a passionate conversation.